Hello everyone, and welcome to Straight Chilling. Each week we watch and review a horror film for your entertainment. You can send all questions and comments to straightchillingpodcast@gmail.com, and don't forget to keep chilling.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing. 5 cold villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star ratings from the floor to the ceiling. If you get your 1 star, no time for feelings. Got a team and DJ, all the 1s and 2s. By the name Elsevier, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all with 2. And prepare to hear the legend of the Straight Chillin' crew.
What up, nerds? My name is Bob, and welcome to another bite-sized episode of this show you know and love already. This is going to be our second mini-cast ever. I'm going to be talking to you guys about the new movie The Dead Don't Die from 2019, directed by Jim Jarmusch, the fellow who brought you other hipster fares such as Only Lovers Left Alive, Down by Law, Dead Man, Coffee and Cigarettes, Broken Flowers, and so many more. So his latest movie here is called The Dead Don't Die, a.k.a. Hipster Romero. So we got a zombie movie. His last movie, Only Lovers Left Alive, was kind of a hipster vampire movie, so now he's kind of doing his hipster zombie movie, which I'm going to start off spoiler-free since it's, a brand new movie, just came out this weekend, and then I'll drop that spoiler warning and get into it a little bit further. But first off, let me kind of set the scene here. So the movie opens up with Bill Murray and Adam Driver. The cast of this movie is absolutely phenomenal. And they're playing cops, and they're going into the woods, and they find old Hermit Bob, who is played by none other than Tom Waits. And they're just trying to tell him to stop stealing Farmer Frank Miller's chickens, who's played by Steve Buscemi. Tom Waits just tells him to fuck off and shoots his gun at him, and they fuck off. They just kind of leave. So that's kind of the tongue-in-cheek tone of this movie. It's kind of like a deadpan sort of situation, not unlike Wes Anderson. If you're probably more familiar with Wes Anderson's movies, it's got that kind of feel going, but it doesn't have that Wes Anderson aesthetic working for it. So the plot of the movie, basically, due to what they call polar fracking, the Earth has been thrown off of its axis, which is causing the dead to rise, as well as various other problems. All electronics just kind of stop working. Radios eventually stop working. The length of the days and the nights are all thrown out of whack. And the world is going to end because of this, basically. Everything's kind of going to shit, and the world is going to end. And amongst all that, the dead are rising. So, like I said, the cast is insane. It's actually, sort of like in the tradition of a zombie movie, right? It's got some decent social commentary interjected into this thing. It's got some pretty good laughs. The gore isn't excessive, but what they do have is pretty impressive. They do a really good job making these zombies look scary. And it's a pretty decent movie overall. I had a really good time watching it in the theater, actually. And from what I've seen, I haven't really seen a single positive review. I don't know exactly why. I mean, I kind of get it. Maybe if you've never seen another Jarmusch movie, you're not quite prepared for it. You just think you're going to get, a Zombieland type zombie comedy, and it's definitely not that. It does kind of break the fourth wall a little too much, and it makes a bunch of references. For whatever reason, it feels the need to kind of explain the references, which I'm not a huge fan of that either. And its tone is maybe a little bit inconsistent. So it does have some problems, but I think overall, for what it was trying to do, for the most part, it accomplishes it. And like I said, they kind of bring the decent zombies, they bring some pretty decent comedy to it, and I enjoyed it. I honestly had a pretty good time watching this movie. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. And I would recommend checking it out in the movie theater. Based on what I've said so far, if none of that has thrown you off, I'd recommend checking it out, honestly. It's you could do a whole heck of a lot worse, that's for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that spoiler warning, and then I'll kind of get into the more nitty gritty of The Dead Don't Die. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
Alrighty. So I'm gonna start off with trying to. It's got some layers as far as the social commentary. I'm gonna try and pull out what I can from this, and of course, depending on who's watching it, you might get a little bit of something different. But yeah, very much in the vein of a Romero zombie movie. He's got some social commentary layered in here. So I think pretty much Jarmusch is trying to comment on like climate change, which is sort of like a big deal present day. Just essentially due to this polar fracking, the climate is gone to shit, and it's gotten so bad that the world is thrown off its axis, and it's bringing around the inevitable end of the world. And I think more specifically, he's trying to comment on like the indifference of people to this happening. Like it's currently happening, and he's got this very deadpan, like I said, kind of Wes Anderson vibe going on, where nobody's really too emotional one way or another about almost anything at all. So he's got Tom Waits kind of living in the woods, and he's sort of the town crazy man, and he kind of provides us with some monologues throughout the movie, and he's just sort of like providing some sort of sane commentary as he's watching all of this stuff go down through his binoculars from afar. And the end of the movie comes around, and it's total zombie apocalypse. Everybody's kind of getting ripped up. And Tom Waits has his final monologue over this scene, and he says something along the lines of, this isn't exactly it, but he says something along the lines of like countless miseries for numberless people. They all sold their souls for a new truck or a Game Boy. What a fucking world. And that kind of, to me, sums up the essence of the movie. People are trying to say like people are happy to be distracted, from all the atrocities going on around them, and even in death, like the zombies in this movie, they go back to what they were doing when they were alive. So if they built things, they go to the hardware store and they try and like get new tools, or they have this one lady who's sort of like the town drunk, and she just walks around saying Chardonnay and stuff like that. So essentially, and this isn't like a crazy new idea. Essentially, just saying like there is no difference in humanity between life and death. We're basically already zombies as we are, and not only that, but we welcome the distractions. So it's definitely got some different layers going on, and even further, I think you could pick apart the relationship between Adam Driver and Bill Murray's characters in this movie. So they're both cops, like I mentioned, and there's obviously a pretty big generational gap between the two. And throughout the entirety of the movie, like from the very beginning, Adam Driver is just saying, this isn't gonna end good. It's gonna end bad. This is all gonna end very bad. And Bill Murray eventually, towards the end of the movie, gets very annoyed by Adam Driver saying this over and over again. And he finally shows some emotion in the last scene of this movie. And he's like, how are you so sure? How have you always been so sure that this is going to end badly? And it sort of like sets up this great opportunity for the movie to land some sort of like grand point, like really kind of slam whatever it's trying to say home. And I was like, cool. It was all keyed up, and I was excited. And Adam Driver just, he kind of, it falls so flat. He basically just says, well, I read the script. And Bill Murray's like, you mean the whole script? He's like, yeah, I read the whole script. And Bill Murray's like, well, Jim only gave me the pages with our scenes on it. And they like name drop the director in the movie for some reason, and then Bill Murray starts talking about his personal relationship with Jim Jarmusch, and I'm just like, why? This doesn't have anything to do with anything. Like, why did you do that? You kind of just spoiled like the potentially like the key scene of the movie. And I don't know, maybe there's a reason he did that I didn't get, but it definitely took me out of the movie. And like there's sort of this consistent fourth wall breaking, and that's definitely the most egregious in my opinion, where the freaking director name drops himself. But throughout it, there's this like fourth wall breaking, and there's like a theme song that was written by Sturgill Simpson for this movie, and it's called The Dead Don't Die, and it's like, a country tune, and it's actually a pretty good song. And the movie opens with it, and throughout the entire movie it kind of comes in here and there, and Adam Driver like buys a CD of the song and puts it on in the cop car, and like as you're starting to get annoyed by this song finally, because you've heard it so many times throughout the movie, Bill Murray just like ejects the CD and throws it out the window, and it's like it's timed so perfectly, because you start off liking the song, and about halfway through the movie you're like, okay, I fucking get it. This movie has a theme song, and like right as you land there, Bill Murray chucks it out the window, and you don't hear it again. And I was like, I like that. That was pretty smart. There's also a couple references to Adam Driver being in Star Wars that I thought were freaking hilarious. The first one's like kind of subtle. If you're not like really paying attention, you might miss it. But Adam Driver's character drives this tiny convertible red Mini Cooper. Or no, I'm sorry, it's not a Mini Cooper. It's just it's a Mini. And so, it's a smart car. That's what it is. It's a freaking smart car. So, these electric cars are silent. So he pulls up in it for the first time, and instead of it being totally silent, it sounds like a freaking TIE fighter or something as he puts it in park. It freaking cracked me up. Anyways, so it's got some fourth wall breaking in it. Like I said, some of it works, some of it doesn't. So Tilda Swinton's character is like, it doesn't really make sense to me, I guess. So she's like this Scottish lady, and she's like great with a sword. She's taking out these zombies left and right, and she's like the new Undertaker in town. She just moved to town, and that's all you really know about her. And then all of a sudden, at the very end of the movie, this alien spaceship swoops in and just like beams her up, and she's just been an alien the whole time. And none of that is ever explained. None of it really seems to have any impact in the plot whatsoever. It's just very distracting, and I don't really get the point of that either. So there's some like extra stuff going on that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But the zombies themselves, like I mentioned, do look really good. I think the zombie makeup's freaking great. They kind of rip into people's stomachs, and they show some decent gore. Not a ton of it, but it's pretty good what they do show. One thing they do that I've never seen in another zombie movie before, though, is as they kill the zombies, they shoot them or stab them or whatever. Instead of blood coming out or guts or whatever, it's just like poofs of dust, which I guess is a reference to, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, But it doesn't really look all that great on screen. It just looks, I don't know, it's just not very impactful. Blood obviously would be way more impactful. So that's kind of different. And there's also like, of course there's this all-knowing nerd character in this damn movie, which is like becoming a trope that's like a reoccurring trope that I'm getting really kind of sick of, because he's just there to like make sure you get the references, right? Which is totally unnecessary. You just like put the references in, and if people get them, cool, and if they don't, that's also totally fine. But Selena Gomez's character drives this like 1967 Pontiac, which is the exact same car that was used in Night of the Living Dead. And, he's just there to tell you that car was from Romero's original zombie movie. And it's like, you just don't need to do that. I don't get it. Shit's a little bit annoying. And of course, he's wearing a little Night of the Living Dead pin on his vest. And it's like, oh my gosh, okay, we get it. But some other cool stuff you've got going on here. Like you get to see like Selena Gomez get beheaded. You get to see a zombie Larry Fessenden, which I didn't even know Larry Fessenden was in this movie at all, but he is, and he gets all zombied out. You see a zombie Iggy Pop, which is great. You get to see a racist ass Steve Buscemi get eaten up. You see a zombie Danny Glover. Chloe Savini's character she's definitely like she grounds us emotionally throughout this whole story. So like she's actually reacting to this craziness happening around her in a way that a normal human being would. She's like horrified. She can't like really deal with it. She's trying to cope with it, but it's this otherworldly thing that's happening, and she's processing it normally. So like every time she's on screen, it's sort of like a sigh of relief, because you're like, okay, she's gonna break this whole deadpan thing that's going on. Like nobody cares, but she does, and it's like very relieving when she's on screen. You get to see a zombie RZA, which is cool. You get to, I already mentioned Tom Waits, but Tom Waits is just absolutely phenomenal. I'm a big fan of his music, and of course, that's just like bonus points for me. And I think the character of like Hermit Bob that he's playing, where he's just like the town crazy, living off the land, watching all this stuff from afar, saying how dumb people are. It's just kind of like a perfect character. It feels like it was written for Tom Waits in a way. I don't know. I think it's kind of perfect. But I don't know, overall, the movie definitely is not tonally consistent. The writing could have been tighter with the alien stuff and like name dropping the director and like all this fourth wall breaking. Like, why? I don't think it really contributes to the overall point of the movie, and in that it makes the point of the movie less effective, I think. But just in general, I had a really great time watching it. I had a great theater experience. It's just it's funny, but it's dry. It's very dry, and if you're not really expecting that, it could definitely throw you off. It kind of lulls a little bit in the second act, but overall, I enjoyed it. I recommend it, and like I said, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. The Rotten Tomatoes on this joint here, the critic score is sitting at a 52%, and the users is sitting at a 50%. So, overall rotten and pretty close there. There's only a 2% difference. It's people don't really seem to like this movie. Like I said, I haven't really seen a single positive review. I don't totally see why. I don't think it's like that detestable, really, but I don't know. That's just me. There aren't really any cooters in this movie either. Just sort of indifferent people, I guess. But there's no real douchebag or anything worth mentioning here. But yeah, that's pretty much those are my thoughts on The Dead Don't Die. If any of you guys go check it out, definitely let me know what you thought. I'd be curious to hear and see if maybe there's anybody else out there that enjoyed it like I did. But thanks for tuning in, guys. And as always, everybody please keep chilling.